Hello, gals, and welcome back to the Pageant Gal podcast, where we have such a special guest here today with us, joining us from my home country, and actually really special. Maddie's actually from my hometown, or the town next to my hometown, I guess. We have our current reigning, most recently winning Miss Queen of the Screen 2026, Maddie Marcoux. Maddie is a fresh beauty in the pageant industry. She really only got her journey started just a year ago and then has been preparing and training through like the online pageant circuit and is going to keep going and scaling from there. But actually how Maddie got started in pageants is really exciting and we're going to kind of go back a few years. But I want to throw it to Maddie. Introduce yourself, where you're from, what you do. Let the pageant gals know who you are.
Hi, my name is Maddie. I'm currently studying, or I guess graduating from my Bachelor of Fine Arts at the University of Ottawa. I am super new to pageants, and it's been so exciting, so fun to learn things. And I'm a hockey player. Sometimes I coach. I'm an artist. I love Disney. I don't know. I was thinking about this the other day. My resume is getting pretty long now of all the things that I do. But yeah, that's me.
Yes, and we're going to go into all of the things. And that's typically what happens when you join pageants. Like you just kind of start collecting these these like subtitle trophies almost. And then eventually you get to a point where you're like, okay, I can't possibly include everything and may tell me about yourself. So I was actually in Windsor. We have Windsor Fashion Week now, and it was just inaugurated last year, I believe. They had their inaugural year. So they they asked, I was on the panel about pageantry and I had to submit a bio. I didn't even remember what was on the bio. And as they were saying it, I was like, wow, this is like pretty impressive. I guess that those are things that I've done, but you'll collect a lot more. So I would love to know because how old are you now, Maddie, if you don't mind
I
me?
am 21, 22 in June.
Okay, I love it because I got my pageant journey started when I was 21 too. But when did you first like find out or have like awareness about the world of pageantry? Was it when you were a kid, when you were a teen?
I can't even pinpoint like a ballpark because I can remember watching the Tecumseh Cornfest parade every year. So Miss Tecumseh would be there on her float with her crown, and that was always so exciting to me because as a 4-year-old, you're looking at a princess, obviously. So I've always kind of just known about pageants in that sense, but I don't think it was till I was maybe 13, 14 that I kind of understood what a pageant was more because it wasn't really something I was exposed to other than seeing it quickly at like the Corn Fest and stuff. And then at 14, I met you and we were like, oh, pageants, we could do that, you know? So I guess that would be around when I started getting a better picture of it.
Yeah, you had like a bigger awareness. And I love talking about this. And I think this is important because I know a lot of US and international girls listen to the podcast. And I've worked with a lot of clients, obviously, from the United States all across. And I feel like a lot of them just get introduced to pageantry so much sooner, whether it's like they'll do their advertising for delegates like through the mail. Like you'll get a postcard in the mail, like just to all of your neighborhood. Like that's how big it is over there. Or you'll often hear girls, and I don't deny it, who will talk about like watching pageants when they were little. And even myself, I'm like, I don't really remember ever watching like Miss USA, Miss America, like until I started pageants. Like that's really when I understood and got into it and started watching them. So I can definitely resonate like for a lot of Canadians or maybe even just girls in towns or people who didn't grow up around pageants, like you can absolutely start at any time. You don't have to like grow up knowing the industry or knowing about it. Like you can start pretty much whenever and be successful. But I want to go into how this actually happened. And it's funny because people will ask me, they're like, Maria, do you like recruit for pageants? And I'm like, honestly, I don't. Like I'm not out on the street and like seeing people and being like, hey, you should do a pageant. Like that's just not my style. Obviously, if I see someone and like that conversation does get sparked, I would never like not tell someone that I could see them doing it. But I remember seeing you at one of the local events and we must have been chatting about it, right? Like in that sense, I think it was you and a couple other volunteers and he had just said something to the effect of like, oh, you should do it because at the time you were like 14, I think, and the age was 16. What did you think or feel in that moment? Like what kind of happened in your mind that maybe I didn't even know after we left that interaction?
I don't even remember, but I definitely went home and said something to my mom, like, oh, like this girl I met really thinks I should do Miss Tecumseh. And I've always kind of wanted to do Miss Tecumseh. So I started counting down the days, and then I remember you reaching out, being like, okay, it's your year. And I had to open up the package and it says the age is now minimum of 18 years old, and I was so upset. I was so mad.
I didn't even know they raised the age limit. You told me about it. And here's the
Yeah.
funny thing, like we connected on Instagram and I'm again when I go to events, like I really try not to give out my social media because I'm like, we're not chances are we're not gonna stay connected very long, or like there's just young kids and stuff. Like I'm not doing that. So I just think it's like so divine that one, we followed each other on Instagram, and then two, we stayed connected, and then three, that every year I was like, Maddie, are you gonna do it this year? And then the next year you were like, I'm 15, it'll be next year. And the next year I was like, hey, are you doing it? And then you were like, the age limit went up. I was like, you've gotta be kidding me. But that ended up being what happens, but it was still in your mind, like as you were living life.
hmm I know. I remember I watched Miss Tecumseh that year because that was the COVID year, so it was all online. So I
Mm-hmm.
remember I think that was the first time that I watched it all the way through because I can remember watching some of it in my 2 year wait.
Hmm.
Supposedly it was supposed to be 2 years, but I remember I would watch some of it with my mom at the Corn Fest, but then eventually I was so mad that year. It was great to watch it and see it all the way through because I don't think I realized how much they did in preparation for it, and that was the first time I had seen everything. But yeah, I don't know. It was special to get to see it, but I was so sad. I would have loved to have been part of it sooner, but all in good
I
time,
feel
you know.
Yeah, I feel you on it. The COVID year was unique, and I love that pageants did what they had to. They're like, we can't not have pageants. That's not a thing. And just for context too, for some of the gals who are listening, Miss Tecumseh is almost imagine if you had like a Miss America local qualifier in your area. I would say Miss Tecumseh is like at that same level. Like it's very highly regarded in our community. It's one of the longest standing pageants that's had a competition consecutively every year. It's at one of the biggest festivals every year that happens in our area. You're like a micro celebrity. You're pretty much like a micro celebrity. It's a pretty big deal. So if you've never heard of it, that is completely okay. But it is very prestigious. And now, of course, like the winners get to go on to Miss Universe Canada, which is very, very exciting. But I hear, okay, so you were watching pageants online. Did you end up like learning about like Miss Universe or like Miss USA, or were you just like, nope, like I just only know the local pageant? Because obviously you were in school, and I know you also went to Disney and you worked at Disney. So like, how much were they on your radar more now, or was it just more so like every year you would kind of tune into that local pageant?
I'd say it was more just tuning in like per year for local stuff. Like obviously I know Miss America is a thing, I've seen Miss Congeniality and that was
Hmm.
amazing. But I wouldn't say my interest totally peaked in the larger scale like competitions till more recently. It
Hmm.
wasn't really something I was exposed to. Like in my mind it was like, okay, Miss Tecumseh or nothing. Like
You're like that is like you're practically like the prime minister or president if you win that. Like that's what
well, pretty
I thought
much.
at one point. I thought it was like the biggest deal, and it was like very prestigious. Very happy I had that opportunity. But so now going into this last year, and I kind of love this. Like I think it's so cool. I wish I would have started pageants sooner. I think it would have been amazing. And I'm also so glad that I started them when I was a little bit more like entering my adulthood. So I just had more like awareness and understanding of who I am. I had more means, more time, just more direction in my life. So what happened last year that you were like, okay, I'm gonna sign up for one?
I have wanted to compete in pageants for a little while prior to over the summer when I did my first one, but it wasn't until Miss Confidently Connected, the
Hmm.
pageant you were hosting online, that I was actually able to because I would have loved to have been a part of Miss Tecumseh sooner or at any point, I suppose. But because I've been going from Windsor to school to, I guess, Florida last year, I haven't been able to have myself in one place long enough to be involved with the community that would come with a reign like that. So when Miss Confidently Connected came along, I was like, oh, this is a great opportunity. I can do it from here in Florida. I have no responsibilities should I win the reign for it, I suppose. And it was kind of just the perfect chance to kind of get involved in it and start to see more of that world, which was just perfect. Like it was very much a the stars aligned kind of moment.
Yeah, and I resonate with that so much. There has to honestly be so many things aligned just for you to say yes, to be like, okay, this makes sense for me at this time in my life. And this goes, for if there's a director watching this, like we never know what a delegate is going through when it comes to making a decision. And like we don't make that decision lightly. It's a big deal to sign up for a competition, right? And to like not just financially invest, but like to put yourself out there. And then not just even to put yourself out there, it's like to align the logistics of your life and like the responsibility. So I appreciate that you took, even though again, it was like your first time and you were new to it and it's an online system, you knew it wasn't going to be like a big, um, just like there wasn't going to be a lot of like pressure that came with like making the decision, but you still took it seriously. And it wasn't something that you were taking lightly, which I really appreciate. Obviously, as the person who was running, it was a virtual like charity style pageant, but still like I appreciate that consideration and just knowing that you're gonna bring that same consideration to each thing that you do. But how was it? How was it doing like the interview and like submitting the things? Like what was going on in your mind?
It was great, honestly. I was living with three girls when I was in Florida working for Disney, and my roommate that I shared my bedroom with, we would be swimming in the pool, and I'm like, okay, ask me some interview questions. Like we would practice like that, very informally, and she'd give me feedback. And she's not a pageant girl, but she was just saying, be confident in your answers. And when I was submitting stuff, I had tried to get some headshots taken through like PhotoPass at Disney, and they ended up looking like my school pictures from when I was in like the eighth grade. It was not the best look. So I ended up using pictures my brother took of me for a different headshot I needed for something else. So it was very casual, like in front of my house, in front of a cute tree. And for interview, I was so nervous about it. I remember freaking out leading up to it, and I had no idea what was going on the whole time. I barely remember anything, any of the questions that were asked. And then I remember crying after I called my mom and I was like, I wanted that to go so much better. I didn't know what was happening.
Oh no.
I was so sad, but I think it was a very good thing that I got to do, I guess, like a low like practice pageant, like less pressure, because I can't imagine going into like virtual provincials, for example, or even like one day like Miss Tecumseh, and that being my first interview experience in person. Oh, that would be so, it's stressful, I think.
Oh my God. Why do you think it didn't feel so good after? And that makes me so sad to hear, but I get it. Like we all gotta have our moment if we're like, oh, that didn't go the way I wanted it to. But why do you think that happened that first time?
I just didn't really know what to expect
Mhm.
totally. And I tried to prepare as best as I could. I found some YouTube videos, and I really was putting in the work to try to get an idea, but it's just one of those you have to go through it to learn. And it was an experience that I needed to have because I feel like once I had that one initial experience, I knew what was coming for the next time I was going to interview, and it just gave me a better idea of what to do. And I don't know, it was just very stressful for me. I was so nervous. I don't even think there was anything specific that came from anybody that was judging or anyone on the Zoom call. It was just genuinely my nerves were just through the roof.
I 100% understand. And I know so many women that would agree with the same thing that you just don't know what to expect when you haven't done it before. But for the ladies who maybe they're about to enter their first pageant or they're thinking about it and they're like, oh my gosh, am I just doomed to have the worst first interview because I don't know what to expect? Because I will say, my first pageant interview I did when I competed at Miss Tecumseh, that was my second pageant, but my first interview, I walked out and I knew I nailed it. And I won the best interview award by a landslide and I won the pageant. So it doesn't always have to be that way. But what would be your advice to the girls who are preparing for their pageant interview and they want to have some semblance of like, okay, I I'm not gonna flop it. Like I can have just based on what you did and what you know now, like what is something that you would tell them, like one maybe like tangible or practical thing that they can do to help them feel more prepared?
I want to preface that when was this pageant? July, August?
It was July, yeah, July last year.
Okay.
Mhm.
So July last year, and it's now the end of March.
Mhm.
And I just did Miss Queen of the Screen, completely different. So the you can improve fairly quickly.
Mhm.
And my best advice is know yourself. Because when you know exactly what you want to talk about, it doesn't matter what question they're going to ask you, you're going to find a way to weasel in exactly what you want to say. Because I remember for Miss Confidently Connected, I was so worried. I didn't know what they were going to ask. And then for
Mhm.
Miss Queen of the Screen, I had, okay, ask me anything because I'm going to tell you exactly what I want you to know, no matter what you ask me. So that was pretty much my mindset. It's just know yourself and then know what it is that you want the judges to know about you.
And again, that's where I love having someone who's newer to the industry who doesn't have a lot of like the technical coaching and training and like pageant jargon or pageant stress. It's just like very practical. Of the first time I prepared, I was focusing on like, okay, what am I going to expect? What are they going to ask? What are the questions going to be? And this time, with obviously that experience, now you focused on more, what do I want to say? What am I bringing in? How do I tweak that? And obviously that's coaching that we did on the Miss Queen of the Screen calls, which is something that's why I run it that way, to be more of like a program, and then you put the program learning into practice, and then you see it improve in real time. Because when you the questions are going to change, but you're not, right? Like who you are and what you're bringing into that interview is likely not going to change from now to like 3 to 6 months from now, right? Chances are like your career is going to be the same. Your um, platform is going to be the same. Your community service, like the memories and experiences that you've had. Like, obviously, some people are going to go through different changes, but you feel so much more confident and rock solid in what you want to say because you know what you're bringing in and you know the details about you that aren't going to change. So I say that those are like your grounding, like anchor points that you're going to be sharing in an interview that help you build that confidence. And hands down, like you definitely nailed the Miss Queen of the Screen interview. And I saw the difference between like kind of, and I'll just say it openly, like I saw how you did when you practiced on your own because I'm in the interviews, the virtual interviews too, but I don't do scoring. I saw how it was when you had done the practice on your own versus like with what I call like the nail your pageant interview strategy. And you really did nail it. Like you combine like the confidence, even though I know you were nervous, and the strategy and the knowing what to expect. And obviously that's why you were successful and you won that title. So that makes a lot of sense, a lot of sense. And so what would you say, what is expected or what is something that you learned in pageants that maybe you weren't expecting? Like what either surprised you or what have you been learning? You can give like one thing or maybe like your top 2 to 3 things.
I would, okay, so I have a couple. So for
Hmm.
one, especially with interview, I just thought I was destined to be terrible at interview, especially after my first one. I was like, oh, this is it. Like I need to practice. It's never gonna be all that good. And
Hmm.
then when I did the Miss Queen of the Screen interview, I
Hmm.
finished and I was like, man, I killed that. That went
Yeah.
so well. So the idea that you can improve. And just because it might not start off on the best foot doesn't mean it has to stay there and plateau. And then the other things that I've learned, there is this huge sense of community. Like girls that are even like competing in different pageant systems or even competing in the same system, I have found everyone is very friendly and especially welcoming. I feel like for someone that is very new to this whole other domain, really. I've gotten a lot of girls reach out to me to introduce themselves, or we'll just suddenly start commenting on each other's posts. So, kind of that sense of sisterhood, it's a lot more prominent than I thought it would be, which
Hmm.
is really nice because, you have people that are like-minded in the sense that they see a problem in the world and they want to improve that. They want to get rid of it. They want to advocate for different things. So when you're around people that want to make the world a better place and genuinely are putting in the work for that, it's just such a nice community to be a part of.
I'm so happy that you've had a great experience. And it's also really nice to know that probably that welcoming, like sisterhood and that feeling of like, oh, we're not in competition. Like we're all just trying to do best by ourselves, best by our communities. It's probably also what drove you to be like, okay, I'm not just going to let that first bad interview like be my story. I'm going to go compete in the next virtual pageant and then the next one. So I think that's beautiful. And yay, pageant gals. Like we all get to give ourselves like a collective pat on the back to say like, we got a good one in here. But I want to shift gears into talking a little bit about your community service and the platform that you have and have been building even before you started pageants. But Maddie, when I say the word platform, like, did you know what that was before our like training sessions in Miss Queen of the Screen? Or well, like, what was your understanding of what a platform was?
In all due respect, oh God, no. I had
Yeah,
no
no, that's
idea.
okay.
I had no idea that was even part of it. And then I remember I think you mentioning it in one of the coaching calls for Miss Compton Connected, like, oh, your platform. And I'm sitting there like, what's a platform? I don't have one of those. What are they gonna ask me? Because that's something you're usually asked about in an interview. And I'm like, well, I don't have one. So how am I supposed to answer those questions? Just further reinforcing that I just spiraled in my mind about the whole interview thing. It's really not that bad. I actually thoroughly enjoy interview now. But um yeah, I don't know. I it was never a thing for me. And then now that you mention it, I do realize that I've been kind of putting in the work, the groundwork for a long time, just in my life independently from pageants. So now that I can outright say, yes, hi, I'm Maddie. I'm a girls and sports advocate. I'm just like, you know what? I have been for a long time. I just didn't really see it.
Yeah, most girls don't know what, I mean, most people don't know what a true, tried and true pageant platform is. And even if you know what a platform is, most people don't know what a pageant gal platform definition is. And I will say, even just where you're at right now, you have far more community service and platform experience than I did when I started. Okay. Like when I tell you, I was really like scrapping events together at the last minute to put some form of like resume together when I competed at Miss Tecumseh. I had nothing. I did my 40 hours in high school and then I had nursing school. That was it. Okay. That was like my community service. So you already have more. And you know and speak so clearly about being a girls in sports advocate, which, of course, because winning Miss Queen of the Screen, you were able to donate $500 to the charity of choice that you had selected. So talk a little bit about this now. Like what is it that you're hoping to do like through pageants with this platform now that you can see like how the two are connected, like pageants and service? What is your own mission or initiative or just like how you want to do it because it's so present on your social media too. And I see like the comments from the girlies and all the pageant gals. They love it. Like not only in the way that you post, but just in like the passion that you have for it. So tell us a little bit about the platform, the service, and like the impact that you're here to make.
So, like we've mentioned, I am a girls in sports advocate. So, my main focus is keeping girls in the game. There's a lot of barriers. Like, I've read articles like the UN has identified the top six, and it's anything from financial to confidence or just feeling like they just can't be a part of it. It's not a space for
Mhm.
them. And the highest dropout rates are when a girl becomes a teenager and they leave sports at a much quicker rate than boys. And that to me is a problem because I have been in sports. It has not been the same one for 21 years, but I have jumped around from all these different sports, but I've always been active. And I feel like through all of these different games, I have gained confidence, leadership skills, and just an abundance of life skills that have helped me in pageants, in my sorority, at school, just outside of the game, off the ice, off the field. So I think that that's so important because you really are learning fundamental life skills in a more amusing way. And if you're not partaking, then chances are you're not developing those skills. So that to me is my main focus is on keeping girls in the game. But on the larger scale, I'm always talking about women's sports, about, women in sports at higher levels. And I am just very much focused on women, girls in the game because I think it's so important. And right now, especially, it's such a huge conversation. So it's very
Mhm.
exciting to be a part of it. And it's also exciting to see not only feedback from people from all over the world, but also from girls that I grew up with or went to high school with that are athletes, whether they're just a recreational player or they're on a sports scholarship back home. They're reaching out and saying, "Oh, like I love what you're doing. I would love to do something with you if you want to do like a little podcast or a live." And that's so special because I feel like especially when you're starting out, you have people and like in the back of your mind, you're like, oh, what if they think it's weird? Like, what if they think it's cringy to be suddenly identifying as an advocate for something? But then you get that kind of feedback, and it's from people that you haven't spoken to in years, and they're rooting for you. So it just kind of reminds you that, it's not really cringe. You're trying to make a difference. That's important.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine seeing somebody be passionate about like somebody could be passionate about pet rocks and I would be a fan. Even if I didn't get it, I'd be like, "Wow, I'm so happy that you found something you love and you're doing to make the world a better place with, right? So I think that people, if I know we can think that it's like, oh, I'm going to be stepping into more of my leadership and showing up more online and speaking about these things, are people going to accept it? But I just think like if somebody wasn't accepting and if they were judgmental, I'd be like, that's kind of weird and odd. And especially as someone who's played soccer my entire life. And I distinctly remember, I think I was like 17 or 18, and my friend and I played in like a local soccer league. And I remember she had said something like, I'm not going to play the next season because like I'm too old. And I was like, girl, where I'm like, we're only like 17 or 18. What do you, I'm like, there's the next age group. What do you mean? And it doesn't stop here. Like we can still sign up. And so I definitely have seen that. And it's simply just having someone like yourself who says, stay active, be on a team, be in a community, right? Like it's those little things that I really connect with and I know that they matter. And I, again, love that you're doing it right from the start. And it's not because you have to do it, right? I've said many times, typically you're not being scored on your platform for most systems. Sometimes you're not being asked about it in interview, but it's more like, what are you here to do? Like, what's the impact that you're here to make? And what are you passionate about? And someone who is passionate and who knows that they're meant to make an impact in a very specific way, I find that those women are just so much more empowered. There's so much more, they live with so much more purpose and direction, and they're really like magnetic. And that's why, and I'm sure the gals, whether you're listening to this on Spotify or watching on YouTube, like they're probably like captivated by you, Maddie, just in the fact that you are so fresh to the industry, but you are so passionate and it's so natural. Like it's a joy to not only work with, but to also see someone doing this in pageantry in a way that doesn't have to be forced. And it's just going to inspire so many other women as you already are. But I want to go into what's next? Because you did Miss Queen of the Screen, you won, you were amazing, beautiful, incredible. You were able to donate $500 to, remind me the organization again. We got to give them a shout out.
To Girls Forward.
Girls Forward, which is a Canadian nonprofit, correct?
Yes.
Awesome. And now you were using these as preparation, which one of my clients, Elena Collins in the Queen Collective, if you're listening, shout out Elena. She was actually one of your judges for Miss Queen of the Screen. So Elena calls each pageant that she does a boot camp. And I love
Yeah.
that phrase, especially, I mean, obviously there are some higher stakes pageants that you can't just like compete and then peace out or compete, win, then peace out. You got to like honor the reign, but doing certain pageants as boot camps to prepare you for what is next. And now I feel like you're officially on to that, like what is next phase. So tell us about it.
I am officially a delegate for Personally Pageants Canada Virtual Provincials. A mouthful of a title, but
Yeah.
that is what I'm doing next. We had orientation over the weekend, so I'm in the process of preparing and trying to film some things for my intro video, and I have my whole list, my whole Google Doc of things I need to get done, and lots of social media challenges, which has been so exciting because I don't really like filming content. I'm more of a picture gal, so this has been a new adventure. But that is what I'm preparing for, and it's so exciting, like to do something more like official and not a mock pageant. I'm like, oh, we're in the big leagues now.
Yeah, and you really are. You really are. And I love that again, you're taking it from this idea of like that this is real. Like even though it's online, it's real, it's happening. There
Mhm.
are other competitors. And so how do you think you're going into this competition either like more prepared or a little bit different because of your last two virtual experiences?
I'm going in confident. Like, and I don't want to say like, oh, I'm confident I'm going to win. It's not that kind of attitude, but just confident that I am going to do well regardless of the outcome because I know what to expect a bit more.
Mhm.
And I know what I am strong at, where I can, tweak things and work a little harder. To me right now, my biggest concern is learning to walk like a pageant girl. That is my current focus. But other than that, I'm feeling very good going into it. And I feel like if this would have been my first pageant, I do think it is set up to be very open and welcoming, especially in
Mhm.
its virtual format. But because I have two other virtual pageants under my belt, I'm going in here like, okay, I know what's up. I know what I'm expected to do. So it's very exciting.
That is exciting. And that's happening next month, month away.
Throughout, I guess, we have
Yeah.
some workshops and then
Mhm.
crowning is next month towards the end, I think.
Yeah, so you're about 30 days away. And I was also going to ask you like what are you looking forward to learning more next? But you kind of already answered it. You kind of got to pass with the first two virtual
Yeah.
pageants, Maddie, and not having to do runway. So now that's on the learning skill format. Because
Yeah.
again, virtual pageants, it's hit or miss with like the scoring and what you have to submit. But obviously for most in-person pageants, which do you foresee that that's going to be your next step after this is being able to go in person and compete and have that real life per se pageant experience.
Yes, absolutely. And we've already talked about it through our coaching calls. The walk is something that I am really trying to improve on because I feel like as a hockey player, grace is not particularly a requirement.
Yeah.
So it is something to work at. And I'm grateful for it because at least in this way, I don't have to do it in front of all these people live.
Mhm.
It's only the judges that are seeing it, and I can record it until I like what I'm presenting of myself. So, in that sense, another great thing to have so that later on, when I am in person, I look like I know what I'm doing,
Yeah, you're not that bad. You're not that bad. You've got a
which is
pretty good
good.
base and foundation. You have like the natural like Disney princess within you. So she just
Oh, thank you.
she just has grace already. Now we just got to put the pageant polish on it just a little bit more and it's going to be in tip-top shape. And either way, you really want to have room to grow in pageantry, right? It wouldn't be fun if you're like, okay, everything is just like easy and good and I'm just going to keep doing like the same thing over and over. Like that's why we join it, right? To have that personal growth and whether it's for your runway, for your interview or learning how to develop more of your advocacy, you are using this to improve and you don't get to do that if you just like do everything great the very first time. And that's actually why I loved after Miss Queen of the Screen, we had the crowning, you won, it was amazing. And then the next day when we had the feedback call where girls could come up and get their score, or they already got their scores, but discuss their feedback, discuss next steps. You were there and you were very active in asking questions. And okay, I know I did great, that's amazing, but okay, how can I keep improving or how can I keep consistent with these things? And that's really a quality that I look for and I notice in winners, whether it's in pageants or in their brand and business, is who's actually asking for that feedback and looking to improve, even though things are good and things are great. It's always that consistent refinement and implementation. So how did that feel getting the feedback and then just taking that in? Like how does that resonate with you?
It meant a lot being able to have that conversation about my performance throughout the pageant. And I agree with you. I think it says a lot about me that I showed up and I'm still asking questions because I know that there is always room to improve
Mhm.
no matter what I'm doing. Like even outside of pageants, there's always room to grow. So being able to have that conversation of, okay, I won, I did good. Where can I do better? Like that's just special to me because I think that it goes a long way in and outside of pageants, really.
And maybe that's because we're both understanding of that because of sports. I always say I kind of always got that from my background in soccer and you just kind of notice it with other athletes that you're never the best in the sport. Like rarely ever are you the best player and that requires feedback and that requires practice and learning and coaches and teams and implementation of it. So you did that right away and it's going to shine and it's already showing in your confidence in the way you're carrying yourself in the way you're presenting yourself in this interview and then preparing for nationals, which I am so excited for. And I'm excited for the day that I get to be in the audience and like clapping and cheering and screaming you on, whatever in-person pageant it ends up being, whether it's, personality pageants nationals one day or Miss Tecumseh or maybe Miss Universe, because there really is no limits for what you can do. But I want to, as we start to kind of come to the end of the conversation, I want you to be able to share and speak about, because something you and I were talking about before this was how going into pageants, and maybe it's because we had been connected, you had a sense of you just didn't realize what limits there were, right? Like you didn't have this sense of like, oh, I can't, I have to look a certain way or like these pressures or standards. And I want to just hear your thoughts on that when it comes to obviously you've been doing this in a virtual setting, but what has been your perspective on like what it actually takes to win versus maybe what some people think it takes?
Well, for starters, like I mentioned to you before, it never occurred to me that I'm too short to be a pageant girl. Like for context, I'm 5'2" and some change, but
Mhm.
so I'm a short girl. I'm not very tall. I'm a little more compact as a person. And it never occurred to me that pageant girls are traditionally on the taller side and more, I guess, tall model-esque.
Hmm.
I love my tall girls, though. I should say that. Like Taylor Swift is just beautiful in my mind. I
Hmm.
love a tall queen. I just am not a tall queen. So, but it never occurred to me that I couldn't like win because I was short because Maria, you're about the same height as me. Like, and I've seen you win all these pageants and be so present with everything that you do. I'm just like, well, Maria does it. And it was the same thing. I remember you saying that, people will tell you you have to compete for a while before you win a title. And it never occurred to me. And I've had this conversation with my mom, like after Miss Confidently Connected, and I know that I had a lot to learn at that point, but I just I thought I was like, I'm sad I didn't win. Maria like she started out and she just started winning and my mom's like, "Well, it was her very first one. Maria technically won her second one." And then
Hmm.
Miss Queen of the Screen came along and I was like, "Oh, okay. So I'm really just becoming a mini Maria here," which I love. But it never occurred to me that you have to, you know, do certain things or it has to be a certain way or that's what's expected because, I've watched Maria do things very differently. And you are like, my pageant gal. Like I have watched like, through Instagram and your platform for so long. I'm just like, oh yeah, like Maria does it. Like, and she believes in me, so why can't I? So I kind of love that, I think that's special.
Hmm. I have more than enough belief for every single pageant gal out there. Any reason why you think you can or what you look like or don't look like, I'm like, no, ma'am, we just didn't train the same way or it wasn't the same stage or something like that. And I love that your mom knew. She was like, Maria won her second pageant, which is very true. I did not win my first pageant technically. And you're on that same track. And you know what? There are some girls who it takes a couple of tries, right? Because it takes a little bit more to like learn and develop those skills. And P.S. Maddie, I don't know if we can ever stand next to each other because I've convinced myself I'm 5'2". And I'm not ready for that to be proven wrong. And maybe I'm like 5'1" instead. And I've just been lying to myself for too long. So maybe when you're compete one day, we'll make sure we're in heels in different heights. So that way I don't have to know. But I think the bigger lesson in this is that our preconceived notions or judgments about what we think can win or should win will hold us back more than any scoring system or any judging panel. And it's so important to challenge and question and find evidence for ways that it's not true. And find people who are doing the things that if you tell yourself you can't, it's either because you don't see it or you need to go and be the first person. And that's the world of pageantry we're living in. Like we're living in a world of firsts. We're living in a world where we have to rewrite the standards and narratives. And that's hard. That might take time, but that doesn't mean it's not possible. And that doesn't mean that you can't try and be disappointed and be frustrated. But the only way that it's not going to happen is if you stop or if you buy into the belief that you can't win. And I'm honored to be the role model for the pageant gals. I'm like, do I do another pageant? Maybe I have to do another pageant this year because someone will need to be like, you have to stop at one point, and then bam, Maria comes out with her 12th pageant competition in 10 years. Maybe that'll be my story. Y'all have to see. I'm in between. I'm in the middle right now. But Maddie, I've loved having you on. I've loved watching your journey. I'm excited for what is happening. You just have the most like beautiful energy in what you're here to do, not just in pageants, but with your advocacy and being a future Disney princess and all
Thank
of
you.
those amazing things. I want to wrap up. Final thought or last thing that you want to say to the gals who are watching this, and then where they can connect with you. I will drop the link below to your Instagram. But final thoughts, anything else you want to say that maybe we haven't already?
I, well, this is always my only advice that I give people. It's a Cinderella quote. Have courage and be kind. And I think that you will go far with that. That is just words to live by in my mind. Feel free to reach out to me on my Instagram. I love to talk, so I'm always around. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been so fun.
Thank you, Maddie. Well, again, congratulations on winning Miss Queen of the Screen. Best of luck in Personality Pageants Canada. If gals are watching this in the future, you'll have to go back to Maddie's Instagram and see, like, how did she do? They're going to be on a cliffhanger, but we know you're going to do well in this pageant, in the next pageant. You have all the pageant gals supporting you and watching you. And for all the gals listening, remember, have courage and be kind. And you are a queen. You can do anything. Chin up, crown on. You're going to conquer life and pageants and everything in between. But more importantly, we are excited to see you in the next episode.